It's 6:06 p.m. We're late. Mark that one down in the books. Chuck's never late. And we're doing something new. We're trying a bi-weekly series. People told me, oh, I forgot to hit go live on TikTok. Here we go, hit go live there. People have told me that, Chuck, you're very smart technically, but you lack that soft touch. And so this lady reached out to me and says, Chuck, I'd like to be a co-host. I'm thinking she'd be the perfect yin to my yang because I'm an engineer. I tend to talk engineerish. Sometimes I'm not good on the soft skills. So let me introduce the co-host for these next series. No, pardon, her video is not working tonight for some reason. Kevallyn Paskos. Kevallyn, how are you doing? Are you there, Kevallyn? We can't hear you. Technical difficulties. So we'll just go straight to it then. We'll put Kevallyn in the back room until she figures out her technical issues. So, like I said, it's going to be a bi-weekly show, and the first one we will talk about, because March, if you've been watching the podcast, is Women in History Month. So I've been trying to focus the show somewhat on women in the low voltage industry. So we brought on two special guests. One is going to be Jasmine Cinto. Jasmine, how you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Now, you are going to be representing all women in the low voltage industry. No pressure. No pressure. Okay. And then, so to give us a counterpoint of view, we're bringing on Brian Labad. Brian, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, Chuck. How are you? Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I like when I get to meet new people.
Same here.
So let's talk about this. So the industry, the low voltage industry. We've gotten better over the years. I've said this in many podcasts. We've gotten better over the years about bringing women and being more inclusive in the industry. I still think we still lack way behind where we should be. So what I really want is, perspectives, Jasmine, your perspective as a woman, Brian, your perspective as a male person in management position, right? And I'm just going to be the host. I'm not going to give my opinions because they're here to listen to you guys, not to listen to me, right? So Jasmine, why don't you go ahead and start off and tell the audience, for those who may not know you, who are you and how did you get in the low voltage industry?
So I'm Jasmine. I am a mother of two young children. My daughter is 6 and my son is 2. And I started off in the electrical field, and I was an electrician for about 10 years. And I knew that I couldn't do it forever. So I decided to go to college, get a bachelor's degree. And I ended up going into estimating in the low voltage industry. And that is how I got into the industry on this side of things. From there, I got into consulting, and that's what I do today.
You missed out one very important thing.
And I got my RCDD in the
meantime. She is a newly minted RCDD. Yes. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been amazing. The company I'm with now is just terrific, and it's just a great company to be with.
Right.
It's awesome.
Brian, how did you get in low voltage? And let's give the audience the 30-second who you are, why we should listen to you.
Oh my gosh. Been in the industry for, it'll be 35 years this year. I got out of the Navy as an aircraft mechanic and was looking for a job. Literally picked up a newspaper, said alarm installer, we'll train right person. Went in and met with the general manager, and he happened to be a former Airedale in the Navy, so we hit it off. Got a job, $6 an hour in 1987. And that company that I worked for did fire alarm monitoring, access control, CCTV. Started from there, worked through the industry, and through that, in and out of school, taking different courses, electronics courses, computer courses, and then as my career progressed, finance courses, business courses, things, etc. Went through a union journeymanship, came out of the other side of it with certifications, and I've done everything in the industry from access control, fire life safety, suppression systems, video systems, network AV solutions, things like that. Everything low voltage, all building technology things. Amassed over 50 different certifications, in my spare time 5 years ago, I got certified as an air conditioning tech because I was bored. Um,
You need a
so
hobby.
I
You need
need
a
a
hobby.
hobby. Yeah, I need a hobby. I'm very restless when it comes to learning, and I believe that I think that's really, if you have that type of drive in you, that's what it does it to you. And right now I'm the security operations manager for FSG Technologies. We're one of the largest electrical contractors in the country. We have a technology group that's based here in Dallas, Texas. We have a technology team of right around 60 employees, and we do everything here from AV to access control to structured cabling. So
Very good. Well, thank you for your service.
thank you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. And one common theme that I see amongst successful people, and this includes both of you, you guys have an unquenchable thirst for knowledge.
Mhm.
And the funny thing about knowledge is the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
That's the Achilles heel of knowledge. That's
That
why
gets a big amen.
that's why the statement for the show is knowledge is power, because
Mm.
the more you get, the more you realize you don't know. And if somebody comes to me and they say they're an expert, cuckoo, cuckoo. Yeah, I don't trust anybody who comes to me and says they're an expert. I just don't. I just don't. As you guys heard, the month March is Women in History, and if you've been paying attention to the podcast shows, I've been highlighting women in the industry. I had Carol Everett Oliver on, the Big C president, first female Big C president. I had Carrie Getz on. She's an RCDD, and she wrote a book that a lot of people might be interested in: How to Jumpstart Your Career in Data Centers. By the way, I bought 2 of the books. I'm giving one of them away. So make sure you check my LinkedIn profile to see how to get into that. So what I wanted to do, Kevallyn and I, although for some reason she can't get on because she's having technical difficulties, we wanted to have a show where we can bring in a male perspective and a female's perspective and talk about this as a group, so maybe the industry might learn from us. And then when we get done, I got what I call the picker wheel. We're gonna have some fun, and I got 10 questions loaded on there. 5 of them are business related, 5 of them are personal related. Like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite dessert or something like that? Right. So let's go and start. So Jasmine, we'll start off with you, and then Brad, we're going to ask you to do maybe your point of view on how we can get better. So, right. So Jasmine, what advice would you offer to someone? Let's say you're at a trade show or something, and a lady comes up to you and says, "I'm considering going into to low voltage." What advice would you give that lady?
Do it. Start right there.
Okay, well that's simple.
Right.
Where would you have her start though?
Well, that's a good question. I honestly would probably have her start as a technician. I think that in-field experience is probably the most valuable thing you could have in your sleeve. You don't
Yeah.
have to start from a college experience. That's not where I started from, and it's always been a very valuable asset to me.
I was kind of glad to hear you say that, because the best project managers, the best operation managers that I have worked for started off in the field. I've worked for managers who had college degrees, and yeah, they were smart, but they didn't understand the small little details in our industry that causes things to go haywire on us, right?
Sure.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of glad to hear that. So Brian, what do you think about this? How would you, if a young lady came up to you and asked you, "Hey, I want to get into the low voltage industry," what would you tell that lady?
I would agree with what Jasmine just said. I think that if you have an opportunity to, break into a technical industry, ground floor is typically getting in a position where you can actually put your hands on the product set that you're working with, right? So, um, because that's where it all starts at, I think, and then it actually will, I think it will help you understand it to the point of seeing whether or not this is really for me or not, right? Um, and then from there, I mean, so many things I think can happen. It's like one of the things that we talk about when we're coaching our employees in regards to you hit the fork in the road, right? So you folks are RCDDs. You get to a point where you can say, hey, do you want to stay in the field? Do you want to go on to becoming a technical support person, do all the programming, et cetera? Or do you want to go into engineering, maybe design, maybe get into the sector as you guys talk about, whether the data centers or things like that? But certainly I would encourage them to always start, like Jasmine had mentioned, always start in the field,
Right.
because that's really where the rubber hits the road, if you will, in regards to where you are going to be impacted more, I
Right.
think, from a passion standpoint of, is this something that I really want to do? Um, so
And overall, it's a great career too. I mean, even if you
absolutely.
didn't want to get into the office side of things, being a
Right.
technician is a fantastic career.
Yeah, it's funny because I often wax poetic, and maybe that's because I'm getting old. Sometimes I just wish I can go back to the field. Sometimes I wish I could just go out there and pull cable again and just not have to worry about all this mental stuff that goes on in my
Oh, the dreams, the dreams, the dreams.
Yes. I just got to find a technician job that pays the same salary as what I
Yeah.
make in the office. Those are kind of hard to find, right? So Jasmine, what changes do you hope to see in the industry when talking about specifically about attracting more diversity?
I know I'm with my company I'm with now is Salas O'Brien, and they're actually we just had a meeting last week, and they were talking about women in the industry, and it's interesting because in the branch that I'm actually in, we actually have a decent amount of women, but I didn't realize that it is still pretty low. Like as industry wide, it's I think like 40 to 60% is women. So I think the number's high. Like I think it's
Yeah,
like
that's
30%.
high.
Yeah, I think it's like
Yeah,
30% or something like that. And they're like really trying to push the limits on that number and making sure they have a diverse group of people. Um, Men and women in the company. So I haven't seen it as much where I am, but so I'm fortunate, to have like a group of women that I could, go to for the questions as well as, men as well.
right. Brian, how do you feel on that? What changes can we do to make the industry more diverse?
Um, I mean, I think, quite honestly, I think we need to really celebrate folks like Jasmine. I think, she really needs to, not tooting her horn for her, but my light in my office went off. My apologies. Um, but to just honestly, just, you know, put it on a poster,
Right,
say this can be
right,
you. I mean, we see wonderful things happening with diversity every day. I happen to be an aviation buff. One of the things I track are women in cockpits. I just absolutely loved it. I traveled a lot when I worked for Siemens. I used to always get giddy when I got on a plane and I'd see two women in the cockpit. I just want to embrace that as well. So I think, into supporting that, I think we as managers in the organization, we need to recognize that, and we need to do what we can to recruit. We need to show how enticing and rewarding it can be in our industry for women to join us. So
right. Look, so
Yeah.
Kevlyn just came back in. Let me try putting her in. Let's see if we can get her working. Are you there, Kevlyn? Kevlyn, are you there? Just goes to show you that Murphy is alive and well because we tested this connection last night and it worked fine last night. The
it'll
audio
work
was
after we're
perfect.
done.
Hey, since you're an aviation buff,
Mm,
did you ever hear of this little thing called Sun and Fun?
mm,
Nah, never heard of
no,
it. It's
no.
the second largest air show in the United States.
Oh, okay.
Second largest. The only one larger is Oshkosh.
Yes, I know about Oshkosh.
Oshkosh. So Sun and Fun is only second to that, and it's in Lakeland, Florida. And when I first moved to Florida, I lived in Lakeland, and I'm not too far from it. Matter of fact, my son is a pilot. He's
Oh, okay. Very good.
he flies 757s
Wow.
for Atlas, the
Okay.
cargo
Yes,
cargo
sir.
people.
Cargo.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah, yeah. It's super proud. I'm proud of all my kids, but I mean,
mhm.
he's flying around the world.
Yeah. He
Flying
flies
around
in
the
and
world.
out of Alaska a lot too, I bet.
Yeah. No, he does a lot of
Mhm.
stuff over to like Europe and India
Oh,
and
okay.
those kinds of areas. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep. All right. So getting back to our subject. So going to the next
Mhm.
question. So Jasmine, Have you ever had to prove your competence or your expertise to a male colleague?
I told you I was an electrician in the field for 10 years, right? um, Honestly, for the most part, it was not too bad. It was more like me wanting to prove myself that I'm not just here for the numbers, I'm here to work as well. So I always, strive to be the best of the best. I came home dirty every single day, and I proved myself every single day.
Right.
Um, that was more in the field. Once I got into the office, I really had such a great mentor as a supervisor when I was at the estimating side of things. He loved the fact that I came from the field and had that experience, and he trained me and, really always made me feel very valued. Um, the next company I was with, yeah, they were a little rough. Like I didn't feel like I was worth my, my,
So let me
my.
ask you. Let me ask you this question, Jasmine, and then we'll go to you, Brian.
Mhm.
Um, our industry, we're rough around the edges. I'm talking about in the field. We're rough around the edges. We pick on each other, and if some
Yep.
and if I was to say something nice to somebody in the industry, they'd be like, "What did I do? Why are you mad at me?" Right? We're rough on each other. We really are. I mean, if we find something that bothers you, we'll exploit it and harass you to death about it. And that's just the way that construction men have always been. How do you think that played a part when you became an electrician?
I don't know if part of it was that I was in the union, so there was like a little bit more respect when it came to that part of it. Like I said, for the most part, I ran into very decent people, and once they saw what I could do, they really respected me. I can only think of one person that kind of gave me a hard time for a while because I was going too fast, and he was kind of like slowing me down a little bit. I'm like,
Slow
what?
down.
Like,
We're on hourly, not production.
yeah, it was crazy, and that was really the only time that I had ran into someone like that, and he kind of gave me a hard time, but
Right, right.
took him a while to come around, and he finally did, like, maybe 6 months a year, because ran into each other a lot. Um, but for the most part, it could be, the union side of things, that kind of had a little bit different.
I've been in both union and non-union.
Hmm.
It's the same on both sides. It,
Yeah.
it truly is. It
Yeah.
truly is. So, Brian, let me ask you to take her question and flip it to the male side point of view. Have you ever seen a woman discredited just because she was a woman and not necessarily treated as a fellow expert? If you did, how would you respond to that?
I can't say that I've really seen that to where I've seen a female being discredited. Um, I know how I am, and I don't believe I would, whether the person worked for me or not, that I would allow something like that to happen within my own presence. I think that would, I wouldn't be able to just tolerate, any type of any anything like that. And I've worked with many of women in my 35 years in my career. I've been in management for over 2 decades. I've held positions throughout from director, vice president, senior vice president, president. Had employees up to 270 employees. So I've had very diverse groups of people that have been under my direct supervision, if you will. And I make sure that in our organization that it is fair, it is even across the board. Okay,
Right,
it should not be okay. Well, Jasmine's a female. Let's treat her special because she didn't work as hard as she has worked to get where she has gotten to for
right,
me to treat her special. She wants to be there based on her merits and her hard work that has put her there. And
right.
we need to recognize that. We need to certainly we need to applaud her for that, but we need to reward her for that as well. And, when we do the compensation packages and things like that, ensure that she is absolutely right there with her peers and her
Hmm.
constituents and the production and value that she brings to our organization.
Right.
I just want to add, as far as being in the construction side of the field, um, I'd say like my coworkers probably protected me as well, because there probably were a lot of things I didn't see or didn't notice from other trades, when they're not as closely
Yeah.
related, like, to you.
Right.
So I know that my coworkers always had my back as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody probably caught a piece of 500 MCM to the back of their kneecaps before the end of the day.
Well, that's kind of true in the industry as a whole. It's kind of like I can make fun of my brother, but you can't make fun of my brother.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the whole
Yeah, we
attitude.
protect our own. We protect our own.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Jasmine, I got to ask you, why does your thing not say RCDD? Be proud of that.
I just ran home and I'm like running up the stairs trying to get to the meeting on time. So I barely got on in time.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's try bringing Kevallyn again. Kevallyn, one last time to see if she fixed her issues. Kevallyn, can you hear us? Kevallyn, I guess that means no. No. One final question, then we get to the fun questions. Okay. Oh, I do have one quick story. So I witnessed it one time. I when I moved to Florida, I worked for a small interconnect company in Kissimmee, Florida. Notice I pronounced it correctly, Kissimmee. And it was owned by a lady, very smart, very driven. I mean, just I was amazed at just I consider her a mentor while I worked there. I mean, she's just absolutely brilliant. And so we went and met with a local customer one time. It was one of the local governments, and they had an issue. She wasn't an RCDD, but I'm telling you, she was just as smart as I was, if not smarter. So she gave them a solution to their problem. I don't want to get into too much details because it'll give away who the customer is, and I don't want to do that. And then they just kind of went on and just kind of like almost ignored it. And then I was like, did they not hear that? And I said, well, hey, maybe you should. And I almost said the exact same thing she said. And they're like, yeah, we should do that. I'm like, she just said the same thing. Why is it all of a sudden valid just because I'm saying it? And you should have seen their eyes went blink, and that's what you got to do. You got to call it out when you see it.
Definitely.
No matter what side of the fence you're on, right? So, so Jasmine, have you ever felt that your gender's held you back professionally?
Not at all.
I think it's a great sign, right? Because I mean, 30 years ago, it might have, right? Especially in a male-dominated industry. Right?
Yeah, I've never felt those stereotypes before at all. I've always felt, felt like I was able to prove myself enough to have the respect in the field.
Right. Brian, how can we be better at that?
Wow. You asked that question, Chuck, and I think of it. I think of some of my own personal conflicts, if you will, that I might have run across in my 35 years, particularly in the field, had I, just swapped us here and put myself in Jasmine's shoes. Yeah, it's interesting. I can say that, when I've always had the mentality that when if I feel like I run across an issue, I start plotting quickly to try to figure out how to resolve that issue. I'm always thinking about how to fix a problem. So I think when it comes to that, I grew up in a time coming into the industry in 1987, dating myself, thank you, where there weren't a lot of women in the industry at all. I mean, I was working for companies where the women were in the front office, if you will, doing the administrative stuff, doing the accounting stuff, but we didn't see women in the field. So even as I can think back through all the years, I don't think I've had one female in the field that worked for me. And it was at a time in the early aughts. And quite honestly, she was the smartest technician that I had in my entire shop. Her name is April, and she was absolutely just all aces. And I protected her to the hill. I didn't, I made sure she was very well protected. But.
I got one thing I got to mention one time. And I was a young manager. It was my first management job out of the field. Still learning the ropes on how to be a good manager, right? I mean, I was mirroring the behaviors that I saw of previous managers, and if you know what that means, it means probably not so good, right?
Right.
And so we were hiring a bunch of people for a project. It was the first video on demand project, way before what we have now. So Bell Atlantic won a project with the FCC to do a trial to do video on demand. So we needed 15 technicians. So we were hired. So we had to go through the whole interview process. First time I even interviewed people. This guy came in, sat down in front of me, and he was, I want to say, he was a retired Ma Bell guy. So I want to say he was probably 55 or 60. At the time, I would say that's old, but that's my age now. So how old is that really, right? And so he kind of got the feeling that I was blowing him off. And I was, because I was like, this is a fast-paced job. I'm thinking in my head, we have 15 tickets a day that these guys got to go through, and he's going to run out of energy, blah, blah. And he said, I got the feeling that you're not even considering me. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not. And he goes, well, what's hard about this? It's this, and this. He goes, I guarantee I'll be your best technician. I said, you know what? I'll take a chance on it just because you have the right attitude. I hired him. He was the best technician of the crew, the fastest technician of the crew, the most accurate technician of the crew. And I learned that lesson. I was like, you cannot judge a book by its cover. You can't. You just can't do that. Can't do that. So, you guys ready for some fun questions?
Sure.
All righty.
Sure.
Here we go. So we're going to throw up the picker wheel. So what's going to happen is, let me close that chat. I'm going to spin the wheel. Jasmine, you get the first question. There's 5 business questions, 5 personal questions. You ready? Here we go. Oh, I got to go to this screen to push the spin button. There we go. What question does Jasmine get? All righty. Boom. So Jasmine, you just got a phone call from your customer. One of your technicians was standing on a very expensive mahogany desk. Ask me where this one comes from, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
How do you deal with that?
As far as like to the customer or to your technician?
Both. You can get both.
Just gotta apologize profusely and kind of suck it up a little bit. I think proving that admitting that you're wrong goes a long way as well.
Oh, there's so much wisdom right there.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to say when you make a mistake or when your crew makes a mistake. Customers will respect you more than if you try to wax poetic and try to kind of pull the blinders over their eyes.
Yeah, you got to own up to it, and obviously you need to have the
Absolutely.
conversation with your technician. They know better.
Right.
Probably trying to do it fast, or couldn't get the desk out of the way. But
okay, Kevallyn, is your audio working?
Oh, Kevlin's on.
I see a video.
Now
but I
she
don't
doesn't
see
have
the
audio.
We can't hear you, Kevallyn. So I'll let you go. Brian, you're going to get the next question. Let me spin the wheel.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. What's this question going to be? Okay. Here's a good one for you. I'll set the scenario. You did just finish a large project. All that's left is the retainage, right? The retainage, the retainage is like 5%, 10%, kind of depending on contract and customer and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
You did the final walkthrough. Customer signed off. Everything happy, but it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. They still haven't paid the invoice. How do you address that?
Well, we're not going to let it get to 90 days.
Good
Let
point.
me start there. Let me start there.
Good point.
Typically what we do is, I don't want to say we're aggressive, but we watch our AR closely. Obviously the money is the lifeline of the company. So, that starts phone calls. And typically what we want to do is have we want to sit down with the project manager and have them reach out to the customer. The project manager is the closest person to that project. We want to understand what is going on with the project in regards to why this customer may not be paying, right? So we want to know, hey, did you promise something? Did we promise something? Did we not complete our contractual obligation? Is something left to be done? And just peeling back the onion, if you will, layer by layer as we're going through that to just try to understand why we have not been paid. Are we waiting on the general contractor since it's a contract? Or are we waiting on the GC to be funded? Maybe they haven't been funded. That's why we're not being funded. Not necessarily freaking out, but just wanting to get to the sorts of that and making sure that we are protected. And then also you have to take legal matters into your hands as well and start lien rights and things like that. So we have
Right.
our own triggers here internally that we do, and usually at 60, going from 60 to 90, it starts kicking a trigger in it. We
Oh,
just
there was so much wisdom in the answer. Kevin was right about you, man. You are on the spot. You are on the spot.
I've done it once or twice. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I could tell. I could tell. And I love the fact that you said that the project manager has the best relationship with them, because some people would say the salesperson. No, the
No,
salesperson is usually there at the beginning, might come by to take them out to lunch. That project manager is interacting with that person all the time. They're going to have the best relationship with them.
absolutely. And there's the key word right there, Chuck, when you say relationship. And I tell my project managers, it is absolutely key
Right.
that you have a relationship with all of your customers. That makes such a world of difference in this industry. It truly becomes a separator when
Right.
it comes to the business. I mean, you can hire my company, you can hire the company next door. What's the difference between FSG and the company next door? You call me, I'm going to be there. You can call me at 7 o'clock at night. I'm going to be there. I had a customer do that the other day. We saw the sad news of what took place in Tennessee, and I had one of my schools call me. They called us, and I picked the phone right up. I knew they were calling because of what happened, and they wanted to meet right away. And we said, "Hey, we're here for you, and we're going to sit down and meet with them, etc." Urgency is a big deal.
Right.
Understanding that in the industry, I think, separates you from the rest, and we make sure to encourage that with our team here as we approach our customers. That you can call us. We are never too busy for you. We will never be too busy for you. We will always be here for you.
Right. Excellent. Oh my gosh. You are brilliant. You're brilliant.
I don't know about that.
Kevin did a good job. Kevin, is your audio working yet?
Nope.
Nope. Shaking her head.
Or Kev. We
All
love you,
right.
Kev. We love
All
you.
right. All right. So I'll take this question. Watch it be one of the personal ones. Let's see. What does it say? Okay. Favorite dessert. So that answer really depends on what time frame of my life you ask me. Right. When I was a young kid, Boston cream pie. That was it. That was my favorite. My favorite. But now my favorite dessert, there's a little restaurant right down the street from me called Southern Harmony. A blueberry cheesecake with a whole bunch of stuff on it. It is sugar heaven. Sugar heaven. It will put you in a diabetic coma in a heartbeat. Jasmine, you up for one more?
Sure.
All right, let's spin the wheel. Let's hope you get a fun one. There you go.
Wow.
There you go. If money was no problem, where would you go on a dream vacation?
Ugh, I love to travel. Don't do it enough. We have a camper now, so we are just trying to go anywhere that we can. So I probably would just take that camper and just go all across the United States. I haven't been to any of the national parks yet. That's a goal of mine to try to get to as many as I can. So just going anywhere in the United States, learning more about our country.
Yep. At being in this industry, I've been to every single state except for Hawaii.
Really?
Yes, every state. The problem is I'm usually there on business.
Mm.
And that means I land at the airport, I drive to the hotel, I teach the class or do the work, go back to the hotel, and then go to the airport and go home. Very rarely do I get to sightsee. But it is what it is. Okay, Mr. Brian, this one's yours.
Okay.
All righty. I I guess the
Mm.
picker wheel says this guy's really smart. We need to pick his brain. So, how often should a project manager go out and QA their job?
I'm going to start out by saying, number one, it's going to depend on the size of the project. Okay. I mean, obviously, if you have a little $5,000-$10,000 job, you don't need to QA it weekly. If you're running a multi-$100,000 something, $500,000 job, there are going to be requirements for you to be involved in it. But your job, you should be QAing it. What I would recommend to my project managers is that there's not necessarily a straight rhythm to, okay, go out every week, right? You will have milestones. As the building's being built, you're waiting on walls, you're waiting on MEP coordination, you're waiting on things to happen, you're waiting on other trades to provide conduits, pipes, things like that. But you should be in step with it so that you're watching it as it toll gates through its key phases. Okay,
Right.
so understanding your schedule, super important. You should be involved with it enough that when I come to you as your boss and I say, how does that project look and where are you at with it, and tell me where you're at financially on your whip with it as well, you should be able to give me the complete rundown on what's going on with that job. So QAing the job, I would say you build that into your schedule as you put your schedule together for each one of the jobs. So I don't want to say that it's weekly, we just give it a canned answer and we move on,
Right.
because I'm booking jobs now that I might not touch, and we're very heavy in construction here at FSG, that I might not touch until 2023. So
And the thing with rhythms is now it becomes to the point where, okay, I just got to check the box just so I can say that I did it. So
well, that's
during
where
some
you
aspects, you might want to QA the job more than once a week. Other times, you may not want to. Maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month, depending on what's going on. But
well,
it's better to be in front of the curve than behind the curve.
right. That's why you test your project manager's IQ on his project or her project based on your WIP, your financial commitment to it, because that's all tied in as well.
Now, for those who don't know what WIP means, that means work in
Work in
progress.
progress.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that term. I didn't learn that term until I told you I lived in Dallas. I worked for a company called FODI, Fiber Optic Technologies, something or another. It's been a long time since I worked for them. And we used to have weekly meetings and we went over WIP, work in progress work. And that's the first time I heard that term. And it's also the first time I heard the term Ebitda. I was like,
Yeah, we say Ebitda, but yeah, you can say Ebitda.
yeah,
A lot of companies will just say EBIT,
right.
because they won't add the depreciation and amortization to it, because that's just a write down anyways. So
Exactly.
but we learned
Yeah, my wife's going through that right now with her new company that they're
But
doing.
we learned. I learned working for a company in the Bay Area at a very young age as a senior technician to be financially responsible for jobs.
Yes,
We were required to understand a WIP. So as a senior technician, as a lead on the job, if you wanted to put your hand up and say, "I want to be a lead," it would sit down and say, "As a lead, you are also tied to the financial performance of the job." So
right.
you had to understand it. So that was great training, I think, that actually led into the project management aspect of my career, and took it from there. So
I think that's great advice.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. And I
thank
think
you.
that's one of the areas where we fall down as an industry. We're so good at taking a great technician, a great lead
Mm,
technician, a great project foreman, and making him into a project manager because they were great at being a project foreman, so they're naturally going to be a great project manager. Not necessarily. Do
yeah.
you know how many lead technicians and project foremen that I know that type with two fingers, that don't know how to go
Yes.
around an Excel spreadsheet? That
Yes,
if you
sir.
ask them to write an email, that the grammar and the spellings are so bad. I mean, remember, each one of those represents the company.
Yes.
That doesn't
Yes.
mean you can't be a good project manager, with some training and stuff, but we're not really good at that in our industry about project
No,
management.
a wise man that's a very good friend of ours, of Kevallyn and ours, that has passed, used to call that the Peter principle. And that is over promoting somebody beyond their level of competency. And I think that happens way too often in this industry. And that's not a shot at anyone, but to your point,
Right.
Chuck, you can't take a senior technician, Omni VOR, douse them with the anointed oil, and they become a project manager. Un- un-
Oh,
Unless you are absolutely taking them through an in-house type of junior project management training
Right.
program,
Right.
setting them up for complete failure. So unless you sit them down and say, hey, here's the small little
Yes.
whip. I want you to
Yes.
run small little jobs. I want to give you baby steps. I want you to understand how we recognize revenue, how we order materials,
Yes.
learning your soft skills are super important. Your writing skills, you're right. Absolutely hunting and pecking is crazy. I, you know, I learned how to type in high school. I did 70 words per minute uncorrected on a manual typewriter in high school in 1982. I'm really dating myself. Thank you very much. But you know what? Those skills, the writing skills, the communication skills, those are things that you really have to influence your team that is in front of the customer to constantly hone and polish.
Right.
Get the ums and the uhs and the ahs out of your vocabulary. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Do those types of things. Present yourself professionally.
Yep.
Those are the things that are I believe are key in the success of a project manager. So
I, I love the fact that you keyed in on that. Start them off small. Let them run with the
yes.
project first. The first month, let them just run with the project manager just to see what they do.
Mhm.
Right. And then the project manager can say, look, here's a small little 10 cable job. You're
Right.
going to run it, but I'm going to supervise you running it.
Mhm.
And I'm going to give you input. Here's what you do next. And do that a couple, 3, 4 times. And the same process also works on estimators.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say that as well. And it goes for consulting too, because everywhere I've gone, I've had someone take me under their wing and train me or mentor me at least. So
Right.
absolutely.
Right. Okay, one final question. This one's going to be for me. Let's spin the wheel. What's going to be? Give me a good one. 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 My favorite sport. Well, here I'm going to really disappoint everybody. I don't have a favorite sport.
Oh.
Yeah. I've never been big on sports. Hey, Kevallyn sideways. I used to follow baseball. I still love baseball, but I might watch one game a year. And if I'm watching, it's because I'm stuck at an airport somewhere and I'm just killing time for a flight. I've got my day job. I've got my podcast. I've got a farm. I don't have time to sit around and watch TV.
And I had a farm, and that's why I got rid of my farm.
Why did you get rid of your farm?
I moved in with, my wife and I, my office light again. My apologies, guys. It's on a timer. We try to be energy conscious around here.
Yep.
Thank you. But we bought a ranch, couple of acres, and it came with chickens and guinea hens and goats. And when you work a full day, and then after work, I go and work out. I get home, cook dinner, and it's like, oh yeah, the chickens need to be fed. Oh yeah, the goats need to be fed. And it's 7 o'clock, and it's 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening. It's raining outside. The animals need to be fed regardless. So,
and they don't care if it's raining or not.
They don't care if it's raining or not.
And they don't care if you're on vacation or not.
So I was like, this whole country thing, being a city guy, I don't know.
Right. Well, very cool. This has been an interesting episode. I appreciate Brian and Jasmine both coming on. Kevin, I'm sorry about your technical issues, but at least you got the video portion working. Right. We're gonna have to get you fixed before the next episode. So, all right, everybody. I appreciate you coming on, and remember, everybody, until next time.